Hey there! If you've ever felt like you're stuck on a relationship hamster wheel, having the same argument over and over again until you're just exhausted, then this is for you. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful way to get out of those painful cycles, and we use a real case study to show you exactly how it works. So let's get into it.
Seriously, does this sound familiar? You love your partner, but there's that one dynamic that just always ends in a fight, or total silence, or just disconnection. It's just exhausting, right? And it can feel so hopeless. But listen, you are so not alone in this. All right, let's dive in. Meet Mark and Elle. They're a great couple who found themselves completely trapped in this classic, really painful loop. They both desperately wanted to connect, but somehow everything they did just seemed to push each other further and further away. And right here, this is the heart of the problem. On one side, you've got Elle. She is just running on empty, totally exhausted, totally overwhelmed, and all she really needs is some space to recharge. But then you have Mark, who is feeling completely misunderstood and alone. And what he needs more than anything is connection and support. You can already see where this is headed, right? And that right there, that's the recipe for their loop. This isn't about who's right or who's wrong. It's about two people with completely valid needs that just happen to be in direct opposition. It creates the absolute perfect storm for a really destructive pattern to grab hold and not let go. Okay, so here's where things start to change. The big breakthrough for them wasn't trying to fix each other. It was this huge shift in perspective. The goal isn't to fix the person, it's to map out and understand the invisible system that they're both trapped inside of. And this idea of the loop, well, it's everything. You have to think of it like a third person in the relationship. It's this invisible force that keeps pulling them into the same old fight. And by seeing it that way, as something external, they could finally stop blaming each other and team up against the real problem, the system itself. So let's trace this out from Mark's perspective. It all starts with something totally positive, right? He wants to share something he's excited about. But because Elle is already so depleted, that feels like pressure, so she shuts down. Now Mark doesn't see exhaustion, he sees rejection. And that feeling of being rejected makes him get defensive. Boom, the cycle is off and running. Now let's flip it to Elle's side. She starts by stating her need very clearly. Hey, I'm tired, I need to rest. But Mark, who is desperate for connection, keeps trying to talk. For Elle, shutting down isn't an attack, it's survival. It's the only way she can protect her last drop of energy. But Mark misreads that survival move as anger, which, you guessed it, feeds his feeling of being rejected. It's just a brutal, perfect circle. And this right here is the absolute game changer. The big aha moment. Neither of them was the bad guy. Neither of them wanted to hurt the other person. They were both just using their own methods to protect themselves, and those methods were accidentally creating the very distance they were both terrified of. So once you can see the invisible system, you can start to dismantle it, and that's where the next step comes in. You build a new agreement, on purpose. A conscious contract that's designed from the ground up to replace that old, broken pattern with something that actually works. And what's so wild is when you dig a little deeper, you find this. Look at their core values. They both value connection. Isn't that incredible? The tragedy of the loop is that their fears were driving the bus. Elle was terrified of losing herself in the relationship, and Mark was terrified of losing the relationship entirely. This is where things get really real. We're talking about radical honesty. It's not about listing what you'd prefer, it's about defining what you absolutely cannot give without completely breaking down. For Elle, that means no deep talks when she's exhausted. For Mark, it means he cannot live in a state of total disconnection. These aren't suggestions, these are hard lines. Okay, so with those boundaries clear, Elle's side of the contract takes shape. She commits to real, concrete actions that honor Mark's need for connection, like dedicated time on Saturdays. And in return, she needs him to respect her non-negotiables, her need for rest, her overwhelm, her limits. It's a clear, balanced, and respectful exchange. And now for Mark's side. He agrees to work on the very behaviors that were triggering Elle, like slowing down his intensity and just listening instead of trying to fix everything. And in return, he asks for emotional honesty instead of the silent treatment, which directly addresses his biggest fear. You see, every single point here is a direct answer to a problem in the old loop.
But look, a contract is one thing. Putting it into practice is the whole ballgame. A piece of paper won't change anything on its own. And that brings us to the next super important piece, a 7-day reset to actually bring the contract to life.
And the strategy here is just brilliant. You can't just jump back into the deep end. No way. The goal is to rebuild that sense of connection with tiny, super safe steps, little interactions that feel easy, and, most importantly, don't set off the old alarm bells. It's all about calming down the nervous systems first.
And here's what that looks like in practice. Just look at the progression here. Day 1 is literally just calm, zero pressure. Then you slowly, carefully build from there. A little bit of gentle reconnection, then a simple task together, then a very structured, safe way to share. It's like a staircase, where each step is designed to feel solid before you take the next one. What this really does is give them a whole new rhythm. It replaces that old, painful chaos with something predictable, something safe. Instead of just reacting based on fear, they now have a conscious system, a new pattern to lean on.
Okay, so we've walked through Mark and Elle's journey. And it's pretty amazing to see it laid out like that. But now, let's pull the camera back and talk about what this really means for you.
I love this. This is the alignment mantra from the program they used, and it just says it all, doesn't it? It's not about being a perfect couple. It's about being two people who are committed to doing the work, to healing, and to building a life where both of you can actually feel safe and be yourselves.
Look, if you remember one single thing from all of this, let it be this right here. The problem is almost never the person. It's the pattern. And the most hopeful, wonderful truth is that patterns can be seen, they can be understood, and they can absolutely be changed.
And that really brings us to the final thought. Because this idea, it's not just for couples. We are all caught in these invisible systems, at our jobs, with our families, even in the relationship we have with ourselves. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What invisible system in your life could you start to make conscious today?